Whenever you're ready. Sorry, didn't turn my mic on.
We're live.
All right. Thank you so much for coming to the meeting tonight, and I'd like to call the regular City Commission meeting of December 7th, 2022 to order. Mr. Wiley or whoever's, are you guys taking turns tonight? Okay, so call the roll, please.
Commissioner Adam Morrow.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. I'd like to welcome Mr. Mitchell to his first is this your first in-person meeting, or is this your second in-person meeting? I'd like to welcome you to your second in-person meeting, as the last one you were on Zoom, so it's nice to have you here. It's nice to have everybody here. And
Still happy to be here.
Well, I am so happy to hear that, because I would not be happy if you said something else. Would you all please join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And may I say that no matter which way people voted, the election season is now officially over, everybody. I don't want to receive any more things about anybody running for anything or asking me for money. Thank God for that. Anyway, tonight under ceremonies and proclamations, we actually don't have a ceremony over a proclamation, but we actually have a supportive thank you that I'd like to interject at this item number 3 before we get to citizen comments. So many of you are aware that on tonight's agenda, or you may not be aware on tonight's agenda, we have a public hearing which will be the first reading of Ordinance 22-1009. And now you say, why is that important? Well, that is because we are replacing the Oregon City Comprehensive Plan from 2004, correct, to this new OC 2040 that we have been working on for excuse me, a very long time, and we have a very dedicated group of people that have shared in the vision of our community. And it's very exciting to me, as someone who has actually worked on several comprehensive plans, including Mr. Conkle, that we are now getting to a point to where our comprehensive plan is much more community-inspired and community-driven than it's ever been in the entire history of Oregon City. And I'm very excited to be able to present some certificates to our participants, to thank them in some small way on behalf of the city and the citizens of Oregon City for their work. So I'm going to go up front because the certificates are here, and I'd like you to come up as we call your name. You might as well follow me, Adam, because you're first. Also, but I think you did a great job in participating, and I want to thank you for the work that you have done to date and the work that you will do in the future to keep this document alive and going. So thank you so much on behalf of the city. Okay, Christina, come on up. Christina was new to the comprehensive plan process, and boy, did she jump right into this with both feet, and I really appreciate your taking the time and energy to work on this, because it's really important to us that you did this, and now you're going to be an expert, right?
I may not like to be called this, but thank you, Mayor.
That's okay. Thank you. Thank you, Christina. Oh, Heidi, come on up. Heidi Blackwell is a volunteer on our library board. She's also was on 2040, and thank you again for your participation. Oh, this is going to be a tough one. This person has been involved in the process from the beginning, and he has stepped up and has come on up, Mike. is now on a city commissioner, so I won't be the only person that's sitting up there that knows a little bit about planning. But thank you for your participation and your leadership in this 2040 process as both chair and vice chair of the Planning Commission. It was instrumental in us getting the work done. And thank you for helping me do some wordsmithing on it. Thank you. Ray. Ray, are you on Zoom with us?
I am. I'm here.
Hi, how are you? It's so nice to see you. I miss you. Ray Atkinson was also a member of our 2040 pact. He's also was a member of our Transportation Advisory Committee for many, many years. And he has left our community, but we wanted to thank him nevertheless for his work and participation and bringing some of the issues involving transportation that other people didn't quite think of. So Ray, thank you so much, and we will get this certificate mailed off to you. And we appreciate it, and we wish you the best in your new position. I hope it's going well.
Going well. Thank you.
Some of the other people that couldn't be here tonight who participated was is it Ariel Christ, Bob LaSalle, Chris Staggs, Kelly Upkees, and of course we just had Ray. So thank you everybody who participated. It's rewarding when you see something that you've worked on come to fruition, and it will actually start to get adopted tonight. So thank you. And thank you to staff. Thank you for jumping in. You came in near the end. So I also want to say, Laura, if you're out there listening, thank you for all your work and the staff at the planning department, because we knew this was going to be an interesting process. And I will tell you, having myself been through many of these, several with the City of Oregon City, this was really an inspiring process. It was a pleasure to be a part of it. Thank you. So I did not give a certificate to myself, so that's, this is Adam and I were participating. So back to the regular part of the agenda. We have one citizen comment. Judy, would you like to come on up? And just give your, I already said your name part of it, but name and city of residence for the record.
Okay, I'm Judy Schaefer, and I live here in Oregon City. I've lived here in Oregon City since 1981, and I've owned a home since 1991, a historic home here. I came here to talk to you tonight about the services I provide at the Pioneer Community Center. I'm a registered nurse, retired family nurse practitioner that provides foot care at the Pioneer Center. I've been doing that for, I'm not quite sure how long, 4 or 5 years. I provide foot care. I cut people's toenails, but I don't paint toenails. I cut out ingrown toenails, deal with fungal nails, trim them for people that are vision impaired, mobility impaired, and cannot reach their feet. And you might not think that's very important until your grandmother trips over her toenails that are curving under her toes, or their socks are constantly have holes in them, or they don't walk around because it hurts too much. And those are real things. There's a scarcity of people that do that. Insurance does not usually pay for it. If you're diabetic, it may not. So there's a scarcity of that, and there's a big demand for it. Initially, when I started doing this at the Pioneer Center, I was charged $4 a person as rent. After the pandemic, I came back and I was charged 15% of my gross income for my rent. Before the pandemic, the center made all the appointments, did all the reminder calls. After I came back, I was told there was no staff to do that, and I manage all the appointments myself. 2 months ago, I was informed that my rent was being increased to 30% of my gross income. That's not fair. That's outrageous. When I complained about it, I was told that to raise my prices. I was told that senior citizens have the largest percentage of expendable income in the demographics of our country. Well, that may be true for those people that have a defined pension. That may be true for a small segment of that group. But that's not true reality for the majority of people, senior citizens. They're living on a fixed income that diminishes daily by inflation and by their increased need for personal services, for people to help them around the house, for people to clean their gutters and do things that they cannot do for themselves anymore. And I'm one of those people that do things that they can't do anymore. I only have 8 seconds left, but I'm just here to say that that's not fair. And I'm going to keep doing my services because I believe in it. I don't need the money. I'm one of those lucky people that has that expendable income. But I'm not going to raise my prices, and I'm not going to pay 30%. And I'm not leaving that building that provides transportation for people that are vision impaired and mobility impaired to come there and get something they need. And if we can't do that for our citizens, I'm using a small part of a room. That's all. I do everything myself. I clean, I disinfect, all of it. I provide the masks for them. I provide all the equipment. I pay all my malpractice. I pay for business license here. And I don't know how this happened. I can't believe that any of you did this knowing that I was going to be doubling my rent. But it's a gross injustice to the seniors here. And, you know, I'm going to be there if I'm in the hallway doing it. And I'm not going to pay 30%. Thank you.
I can if I want.
Just one more thing. I meant to open with thanking all of you because I know you don't get paid for any of this, and you put in hundreds of times more hours than I do. So I'm really grateful to all of you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you, Judy, for bringing this to our attention, and I would like to ask staff to get back to us on this. Mr. Reed is not able to be here tonight, and I would really like us to have a further discussion with him regarding not just this particular vendor, but all of the vendors that we have in our system that provide services. I think it's, I think as Ms. Schaefer said, the need for seniors for this type of service is really important. I know that my mother-in-law, who is on a fixed income, gets this service at a senior center in Estacada, and it's vital. If you don't take care of their feet, there are horrible, horrible consequences that ensue, and leading to serious illness, and then unfortunately for some people, it can lead to death. So thank you for bringing this to our attention, and Mr. Conkle will get back to us, or actually Mr. Reed will get back to us.
Thank you.
It's the red.
There's been several themes over the past, I don't know, 10 years that has still not been addressed at this city. One is building rentals and rental charges and park fees and event spaces and all of that. I've been harping on it, and unfortunately, these are the issues that are going to happen, okay? So if anyone in this town has had an issue with space rentals, increases of fees, building rentals, special event rentals, or anything that has been an absolute disaster, because I know it has. A lot of the commission doesn't know this, and some of our staff doesn't know this. Please email them. Please email the entire commission, because I hear of these examples every single day. Every single day. And I'm trying to convey that there is a massive issue with all of these and how the departments in this city work together and consistency and all of this. I've been asking for the, I've asked for the cost analysis to come back to us. I've asked for building rentals to come back to us. I've asked for park rentals to come back to us. I'm going to continue asking it until it comes back to us because it needs to be fixed. It's all a mess.
Thank you, Thank you, Commissioner Smith. I think our direction to staff has been very clear. I'd like to
Mayor,
ask, are
Mayor,
there, yes, sir.
If I could real quick.
Yes, sir.
So park fees were scheduled to come back to the commission on January 4th. Do you want this specific item at the next meeting or roll it into the January 4th park fees discussion?
January 4th is fine, but I think specifically related to the issue that Ms. Schaefer has raised, I'd like to see us get some response or even further discussion with Mr. Reed. I think that would be appropriate because it's not just Ms. Schaefer. I believe the other issue that I have heard about is the practitioners that are at the pool. So those two things are sort of commingled to me. Please.
I was going to wait to talk about this more at our work session when we had committee reports, but as you guys know, I'm the commission liaison to the Citizen Involvement Committee, and I would just like to add another issue to that same thing is that we're charging our neighborhood associations for meeting space, which I do want to acknowledge that this commission, apart from Mike Mitchell, we unanimously supported the policy, but I feel like a lot of us are hearing from the community a lot of the unintended consequences of this, and we need to address that. So yeah, I just want to add that as well. The neighborhood associations are feeling this, and I hear that every single CIC meeting that I'm sitting up there with them. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anything that we, so we have several items on the consent agenda. Are there any items that any of the commissioners would like to pull off for further discussion?
7D. Sorry, 7D.
7D, okay. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Adam Morrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right. So next on our agenda, we have the public hearing that I mentioned earlier in the meeting. It is to do the first reading of the ordinance to replace our current comprehensive plan with the comprehensive plan OC 2040. Mr. Conkle?
Thank you. I'll turn it over to Ms. Aquila Hurd-Ravitch.
Thank you. I do have a presentation. So I sent you the.
If I could back up for I'm sorry to interrupt. Mayor, I think we had a presentation for the elm trees at the library park before. Oops, did we?
Well, obviously, I don't have the most, oh, sorry, it's at the top of the page, and I just skipped right over it. Okay. Sorry about that. Who's taking the lead on that? Because obviously, Mr. Reed isn't here. Mr. Conkle, would you go ahead and introduce this item then?
Sure, and I think we do have Mr. Reed. Is Mr. Reed on Zoom, I believe?
Yes, I'm here.
Yep, there we go.
Hi there.
Hi, City Commissioners, Mayor. Tonight, the Parks Department will be providing an update on several trees that have succumbed to Dutch elm's disease at the library park. Jonathan Waverly, our Parks Manager, will be providing the update. We also have the arborist here as well to answer any questions. I will turn it over to Jonathan Waverly.
Good evening, Mayor and City Commissioners. Thank you. I'm, like Kendall had mentioned, I'm here to present on the library park elm trees, the history and the health of the trees.
Mr. Waverly, just in case everybody in the world doesn't know who you are, could you just introduce yourself again for the record for the public? We know who you are.
Jonathan Waverly, Parks and Cemetery Maintenance Manager. So our goals for these trees have been to save and prolong the life of the elm trees from the Dutch elm disease, prevent spread to other healthy trees and limit the extent of the disease advancement in the existing trees. Steps that we have taken started in 2019 with the removal of a diseased tree. Following that removal, we followed up with root trenching to sever grafted roots and decrease the potential spread through roots being grafted together below ground. We followed this up with injections to slow the progress of the disease and pruned out any of the dead or decaying branches that were in the trees. Other impacts that have occurred to these trees were the severe ice storm damage that occurred in 2021. Following the severe heavy damage to those trees during that process, we followed up with a summer where we had a heat dome where there was temperatures of over 115 degrees. And then just recently we had a prolonged drought this summer. So this picture shows the current condition of the elms. You can see on the one on the right, there's not a whole lot of live material left on the tree. A lot of the trees are lopsided due to the damage that had occurred and some of the pruning that needed to be done to remove a dead or diseased wood from the trees. When these conditions began to persist throughout the summer, we contacted Bartlett tree professionals to come out and assess the trees in the fall of 2022. We received the arborist report. That arborist report leads us to believe that we will need to be moving forward with the removal of, out of the 9 trees, 5 of the trees that have the Dutch elm disease have progressed so far that they'll need to be removed. The other 4 remaining trees in the spring will receive an injection treatment to helpfully decrease the spread of any future or slow the progress of it. So the conclusions that we've come to is that our efforts to prevent the loss of these trees has been unsuccessful. Rapid spread of the disease could ultimately not be prevented. The result has been severe decline of these trees on a continual basis. The Parks Department plan is to proceed with the permitting, get the 3 quotes for the removal of the trees, secure a contractor for the removal, and we would try to do that this winter, and then propose mitigation and replanting as soon as we could possibly get in there after these diseased trees were removed, and also that the repurposing of the wood would not be recommended due to the disease. You can see the picture on the left just shows a typical ball and burlap tree, but the tree on the right is actually a successful replanting of a tree that we had at the park site. And like Kendall had mentioned, we have our arborists. If you guys have any technical questions or any questions that we could help answer as far as regards to these trees and how we're proceeding with them.
Commissioners?
Just one. We went through this process of injections before, and it did not yield a favorable result.
Correct.
Do we have any reason to believe that by doing it with the remaining trees, we'll have any different experience?
My thought on the matter is that it will slow the loss of the trees, and therefore, I mean, it's not perfect. It's not going to say that those trees no longer, we can't heal them, right? They have Dutch elm disease, but it can slow the process of death in the trees. But I would leave it to them to say, what their experience has been with success with treatments.
Just a quick question. What was the time interval between when we did the treatment to the trees you're recommending removal to till now? How long did we prolong their life?
2 years.
Okay, that's things. Thanks.
So if you guys want to answer questions, just give us your name and your place of business, that'd be just fine, because we know who you're from, but we have public record, so. Any other questions? I mean, I have several. My only familiarity with this particular process prior to Oregon City is what they've been doing in Ladd's Addition, and they apparently have a much better success rate than we have, and I don't know if that has to do with the fact that they caught the trees in time, or they've been able to, do regular inoculation. So could you explain really about the process of, and I asked this last time, the process of inoculation, is it only done once, or do we do this on a regular basis to help slow the, because I think our goal, as you can well imagine, is that we want to preserve those trees as long as absolutely possible. They basically make the park. And if we were to take them all out, I can tell you that not only would my neighborhood go nuclear, but the community would. I live not too far from there, so just to give you some context.
Thank you, and thank you for having us, Council. My name is Lyle Fellmeyer. I'm the local manager for the Bartlett Tree Expert Office, also a board-certified master arborist, as well as a ISA tree risk assessment qualification. Elm trees are an American tree, and for probably a decade, if you have elms, especially the American elm in your cities, it's recommended for this inoculation. It is expensive, and it's a 3-year type of inoculation. So in 2019, getting into the Carnegie Library, the site of these trees, and a great site, we saw the first tree in its decline in an effort to salvage as much as we can. Unfortunately, COVID and the heat dome and just the chaos happened, so we have a result of 5 additional trees. But there are still trees. There's one up on the upper east side on the upper part of it, and there's 2 other ones that aren't showing any signs. So those are worthwhile saving because we can't replace them in our lifetime, and we have good success with this treatment before the infection actually happens. So unfortunately, the perimeter to the first tree that had succumbed to Dutch elm disease unfortunately had grafted with those other trees within the footprint of the root plate of those 3rd and 4th and 5th trees. So here we are as a way to mitigate. It's definitely highly recommended to treat those trees that aren't showing sign, but the 5 trees that are recommended for removal, if there's life in 2 of them, but the outcome of the tree that would be removing the affected branches and the likelihood of the rest of the canopy succumbing, it's a moot point.
So the question I had too was, how often are they inoculated?
Every 3 years.
Okay. So I was involved with many other members of the community in the reconstruction of the Carnegie, and they did an assessment, as I recall, under our previous library director. So it's been before 2019 because the library wasn't it finished about 2015, 16, somewhere in there. So I mean, I've been aware as a resident that we have had Dutch elm disease and we've had other trees taken out because of that. But the city has embarked on a process of inoculating them and making sure that trying to keep the ones that were at least healthy. But I know, as you're saying, the roots underground, they like to
commingle.
And that's what they do because that's how they support each other. And so if one's got it, then it affects the other one. So I guess the question I would have then, I don't know if this is so much for you all, but there were some new trees planted as part of the library construction because we took trees out. And that's my concern is that the trees that we are planting there are very, very small. So similar to what we had asked for at the library, at the pool, we need to have a bigger caliber. I know they're not going to be anywhere near in our lifetime, but on any given day when it's nice, there are people out laying on the lawn, lounging, reading, whatever they're doing, and they're enjoying the canopy of the trees as some respite. So I think it's maybe we do this over a series of time to replace these trees that we're taking out that by getting a little bit larger caliber, and I don't know if that is possible within our budget, but I think we need to give the library a head start to try to get back to where it was. at least to some point, and I don't know what species we are proposing to replant in there. Obviously, we're not going to put any more American elms unless there's an elm that's out there that is resistant to this disease, and I haven't done any more research, but like I said, my only familiarity is the Elm Brigade at the Ladd's Addition, because their whole subdivision is pretty much elms, and they've been able to arrest, a lot of the damage by not having so many of them go out. So I guess that's my question.
Yeah, well, so the recommendation from staff is going to be to replant with oaks. That's what we've been replanting back in there with, a very large stately tree. We'll eventually, over time, get back up to that size. One of the things that I wanted to have Bartlett also possibly discuss is I understand the request to want to replant with larger and bigger trees, but there's actually information out there and available that says that the smaller trees will actually eventually surpass, and I'll let you guys kind of speak to that extent.
Thank you.
I'd like to comment. I'm Kevin Carr,
Hi,
Bartlett Tree Experts, also a certified arborist, same credentials as Lyle. And I've been watching the trees in Oregon City for quite a while, and I saw the first infections there by the John McLaughlin house probably 7 years ago. 2 trees, they both got Dutch elm disease within the same summer, died. And unfortunately, not long after that, I believe it was probably 2017, is when the trees at the library actually got infected. So 2 years later, 2019, we were asked to look at the trees, and we provided the recommendations that resulted in the injection plus the severing of the roots that were grafted together. But unfortunately, with several years and the movement of Dutch elm disease fungus several feet in a day during the summer period, so you can imagine in the course of 2 weeks they can move 60 feet, the fungal strands will. So the infection got ahead of anything that we could do. We stabilized the trees that were there through injection and pruning, and now we have, a population that, deserve a fighting chance. Just to comment on what Jonathan was saying, there's an adage that you plant a $2 tree in an $8 hole, meaning, put some resources into the planting site so that the tree you plant will grow quickly, as opposed to a larger tree that often just sits there for years and doesn't grow or might die. So we sometimes have to taper our expectations a little bit, but they do grow rapidly, the smaller tree, as opposed to a larger tree. And that's testament to the ones at the library, those oaks that are planted there, that have done really well.
What species of oak are they?
They're swamp white oaks.
There's one bur oak and then one red oak. So, and we wouldn't, I would suggest Oregon white oak, but it's an irrigated lawn area there as well.
They don't like that.
And they don't like that.
No, they don't like that.
So I want to set us up for success.
And real quick comment, going with, using an analogy, a 5-inch tree takes 5 years to establish. And imagine the size of the root, when they collect that tree, 90% of the roots are being cut. A 2-inch caliper tree would only take 2 years to establish, at 1 year for every caliper inch. In that 3-year time after the 2-inch tree established would be as large, if not larger, than the 5-inch tree, where the 5-inch tree is still working on, and the cost is minuscule compared to the size of a larger tree. I agree, every large tree, we only have so much time to enjoy it. Bringing in big, the likelihood of success diminishes where a 2-inch caliper tree will have a better rate of establishment for the investment.
Yeah, I realize I didn't define what I meant by bigger, but I'm not talking about an inch and a caliper,
Right.
an inch and a half caliper. To me, that's a twig tree.
Right. So 2 to 3 inch would probably be the max I would be looking at. So.
Any other questions? We have a motion to proceed. Yes, I think we should. We need to go on record that we're supporting this recommendation that they have. It's not in the staff report, but I feel more comfortable about it. Go ahead.
I'll move to proceed with the action steps as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we proceed with the action steps provided by staff for the elm trees at Library Park. Let's have the roll call, please.
Commissioner Adam Morrill,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion
I also
passes.
live near the McLaughlin house, so I'm very familiar with those elms, too. And we haven't replanted anything over there, I noticed. We'll talk about it later.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the report, and thank you for your work. Thank you for coming in, and we'll look forward to, so I hope we can put something out, Mr. Conkle, in our news that the trees are being removed because of the disease, so that we don't have people just, how they are in my neighborhood. So I will also spread the word as much as I can. All right, now let's get back to item number 8. I apologize, it was at the top of the page and I'd already flipped my agenda over. So, Ms. Hurd-Ravage, you were getting ready to tell us all about the fabulous process of the 2040 and how we see the light at the end of the tunnel and there is no train. It's only bright sunshine, and go right ahead.
Yes, thank you, and I believe it is bright sunshine. I hope it's not another train coming. Thank you. Yeah, I will give the presentation, and Anna East Mathis from 3J, who helped with all the OC 2040 work. They were a consultant, is here to help answer any questions. Let's see, will this work? Oh, it kind of works almost. So the purpose tonight is for a first reading of Ordinance 22-1009, adopting a new comprehensive plan by repealing the 2004 comprehensive plan and replacing with the OC 2040 plan, the attachments and also the ancillary documents. Okay. All right, so a process for a legislative amendment is a type 4 process. There's 2 public hearings. The first one occurred at the Planning Commission meeting on November 14th, where they recommended approval by a vote of 4-0. And then we have the first reading of the ordinance tonight. Disclosures of ex parte are not required, but disclosures of conflict of interest are. And that is just reminding me, Mayor, did we actually need to read the script?
For the public hearing for legislative?
Yeah.
After the staff report?
Yes, after the staff report.
Okay, thank you. All right. So all the public comments that I've received are in the packet tonight. With this proposal, if the OC 2040 is adopted, then we will replace the 2004 plan, and if it is not, then 2004 plan will remain in effect. So a comprehensive plan came out of the Oregon Senate Bill 100, which was adopted by the legislature in 1973. And under that act, the state was mandated to adopt statewide planning goals and guidelines. To date, the state has adopted 19 goals. Once a comprehensive plan is adopted, all of a city or county's community and area plans, zoning codes, permits, and public improvements are required to be consistent with the comprehensive plan. It directs all of the activities that are related to land use and the future of natural and man-made systems over the next 20 years. And that's what this graphic is depicting, is everything that falls underneath the comprehensive plan. So in Oregon City, there are about 13 of those statewide planning goals that are applicable. Not all 19 of them are. And the way that we address this is in each chapter, below the chapter heading, you'll see which goals are relevant, and that's what's been listed here. So under Chapter 1, or Healthy and Welcoming Communities, we're addressing State Goal 1, Community Engagement and Historic and Cultural Resources. Under our Chapter 2, Diverse Economy, we're addressing land use and economic development, housing and urbanization. Chapter 3, connected infrastructure, we're addressing public facilities and services, transportation, and energy. And then finally, in Chapter 4, protected environment, we're addressing natural resources, air, water, land, natural hazards, parks and recreation, energy conservation, and the Willamette River Greenway. Lost my connection there. Thank you. So the comp plan is set up with these elements, with a vision, goals, policies, and strategies, and the vision was informed by broad community input. The goals, policies, and implementation strategies were formed with input from our project advisory team, who we recognized earlier, the Planning Commission, and the City Commission. There you go. I think one of the hallmarks of this process has been the public engagement that occurred. And the OC 2040 process had over 1,000 community members tell us, give us feedback about what makes Oregon City special. And that's unique. I haven't seen that kind of engagement in my career. And so I think that's really says a lot about the process and the visioning process and the vision that was eventually adopted. Between fall 2020 and summer 2021, Oregon City residents and business owners participated in numerous outreach and engagement activities. This included community conversations, online surveys, interactive poster displays around town, social media. There were paper copies of an online survey that were available at apartment complexes, and there was local gift card incentives to local businesses. All the engagement activities asked participants to share what they love about Oregon City today and what they want to see in the future. And so that really informed that vision and the vision that was eventually adopted. Another part of the public engagement was the large and diverse body of appointed volunteers, the project advisory team, and they were instrumental in guiding the engagement efforts and reviewing community input and crafting the vision statement and goals and policies. So then in August of 21, this body adopted that vision that came out of that public engagement. And 4 key themes emerged from the community outreach: healthy and welcoming communities, a diverse economy, connected infrastructure, and protected environment. And those themes served as the framework for the plan, and they make up the chapters of the comp plan. And as I mentioned earlier, the statewide goals are then connected to each of these chapters and addressed through the goals and policies that we adopted. So these are lists, basically, of the chapter with the statewide goals, and then the goals that you all worked on and the Planning Commission worked on. I'm not necessarily going to read through all of them. We've spent a lot of time on them. I do want to point out a couple of things here. One is in Goal 2, we did make, the Planning Commission voted to make a small change to Goal 2 when they recommended approval, and that was inserting the word art. So it now reads, acknowledge, protect, enhance, and commemorate Oregon City's historic art and cultural resources. So that was something I wanted to point out. The other thing I wanted to point out is Goal 4 is new. We didn't have a goal in the 2004 comp plan that addressed diversity, equity, and inclusion. So that's a new piece that we have policies for. The diverse economy is a chapter that's really pretty hefty. There's a lot in here. Again, I don't need to go through the 5 goals that are in here, but addressing land use, economic development, housing, and urbanization really has a lot of policy guidance in it. Chapter 3, connected infrastructure. We have 4 goals in this section. And this is where we will address things like our transportation system plan, stormwater master plan, things of that nature that come up through our master planning process. And then finally, under Chapter 4 with protected environment, this is the area where we will, where our Parks and Recreation master plan would fit, that would support this chapter. I do think it's somewhat unique with Goal 4, where we're addressing the Willamette River Greenway. It's interesting that it is a statewide goal, but not all communities have this amenity, and so this is something that we get to make some goals and policies around. I want to make sure that I enter everything into the record properly, and so as part of the staff report, there are findings of facts and conclusions, and the amendment does comply with all the approval criteria. All the public comments that we've received have been submitted, and the other thing that I'm entering is the Oregon City to 2040 Comprehensive Plan, the map, the urban reserves map, and ancillary documents along with this presentation. And the Planning Commission did make a recommendation of approval at their November 14th meeting. These next couple of slides I'm going to run through, talk about some of the changes that have come up since I was last here. So one of the changes that the Planning Commission adopted as part of their recommendation came from comments received from a public comment, and really from a member of our community, and she's also a member of our Arts Commission. And so you'll see here the areas in red that were added in and adopted, or made a part of the recommendation from the Planning Commission. The idea behind it was to put a little bit of focus on arts in the community. Okay, so this one is a little bit hard to read. This is some wording that the Planning Commission discussed in October. So on the left side of the screen, you'll see in red towards the bottom some changes that were made. And on the right side is Chapter 3, Goal 3, and it's got some wording that's bolded. And this is something that I received a request from Commissioner Mitchell for a discussion. So if you like, I can leave this up here now if you want to discuss it now, or I can kind of finish out the last couple of slides and we can come back and discuss. I don't know if you have a preference.
And then we can come back.
However you want.
Mike?
You should come back to it.
Okay. Sounds like we have a consensus to just go ahead and keep going, then we'll come back to those
Okay.
red lines or blue lines or whatever we're looking. Oh, they're red lines, yes.
All right, so this next one is suggested wording, and I realize you can't read this on the screen. The wording itself is included with your packet and public comment, and this came from a representative from PGE. They did speak at the meeting on November 14th via Zoom anyway. And then subsequent to that presented some additional wording that they felt needed to be included specific to utilities, public and private utilities. So that's another one that you can decide if you want to include or not. And we can come back to that as well. I really only have a couple more slides here. So your options are to approve the first reading of Ordinance 22-1009, adopting a new comprehensive plan as recommended by the Planning Commission. you can approve the first reading with modifications, or you could continue it to a date certain. And that's the end of my presentation, so I'm happy to go back to the
first one dealing with arts.
the first
Yeah.
one dealing with arts, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, and I agree with the addition of that. I just think it should say artistic rather than art, so that it goes with the flow of the sentence there to be grammatically correct. That's the only thing I have.
Does that sound all right, gentlemen? So would you read that sentence, just so we have for the record that we had the correction?
Sure. So its goal to acknowledge, protect, enhance, and commemorate Oregon City's historic, artistic, and cultural resources.
Sounds good.
Is that under a section that, okay, so it's healthy and welcoming communities, and then it goes on, let's see.
And with that change in the other sections where it is redlined here as well.
Okay, so it's spelled out, so it separates historic and art. My guess in a lot of the discussions in this community, those two are separate, and it's not usual that we put them together. So I think by having it separated as the strategy A and B kind of does that. That's been a long dialogue in this town, that art is not history and history is not art, and those two kind of work together, but they're not the same thing. And so I'm just worried about putting that headline together that implies it's together, but I think maybe breaking it the way it is okay.
Commissioner Morrell, I think maybe you made an additional change that I didn't catch. Did you say to change it?
So just not only in under the goal 2, but where it's also in policy 2.4, all the places where it is after that, next to policy 2.4,
yeah.
identify and protect important artistic and cultural resources. So where it does appear after the initial, it's not just the headline that I would like to have say
You like
artistic.
artistic would be changed throughout, yeah.
Because if we were doing it, it would either be and commemorate Oregon City's history, art, and culture resources to keep them all the same, or we should keep them the same with historic, artistic, and cultural resources.
Yeah, it's just grammatical to make it sound, to flow better.
Okay, I've got that. Move on to the next slide then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I read the information from PGE, and I understand generally where they are coming from. However, I do have the same concern that was addressed under this.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's the next slide. Do you want to?
Oh, the next one, okay. Diverse
It's hard
economy.
to read the small font.
Sorry, I'm looking at the
Member Griff, can I
the summary
speak to this?
matrix. Go right
Can I
ahead.
speak to this one that's on the screen?
Please.
You probably all recall back before, a couple of months ago, before I was appointed to the commission, when I made a public comment and was vague about a particular concern. This is the one.
Okay.
Pardon me. And the concern was having a strategy that said we were going to encourage new development at maximum densities.
Yeah.
And I don't think you would find much support in this community
No.
No,
for that.
no.
So the Planning Commission adopted the red line that you see under Strategy 5.1.A. I thought we fixed the other one at the same time, but Ms. Hurd-Ravitch's notes are better than mine, and the Planning Commission did not, because in Strategy 3.5.A on the right column, there's that same wordage again, encouraging development at maximum levels.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is we need to change that one as well to match the wording that's used in the one on the left. And then this is the one that I brought up. And I will also say that to honor the process, this is a much more level of detail that the OC 2040 group did not ever get into. We're not violating any tenet that they put forth or we put forth. This is, like I said, a level of detail that we didn't get to.
No, I don't have any, that was something that I saw as well, and I think you were hinting at it, but you weren't exactly direct about what it was that you...
Mr. Kabizman was watching me.
Uh-oh. Gotta watch that. I think that given our reliance to a certain degree on all of our concept plans, I think we want to be able to allow for some flexibility, but I think that you are correct in the fact that I don't think our community is enamored or would support maximum densities, and nor should we. I think that we have an obligation to look at a balancing process by which and where that growth does go. And within the urban growth boundary, we have a little bit of wiggle room to sort of move things around. And obviously, you know, the tenets of planning call for us to have higher densities towards the core, and the densities as we move out to the edges are less because we don't have the same types of services and facilities, because we're still playing catch up by all the stuff that we have to inherit from our friends at the county. So what I'm worried about is that would we define, what do we mean by reasonable? Because what we might define as reasonable in 2022 might not be reasonable to somebody in 2032. So is there a way we could finesse that a little more to be more towards the clear and objective side as opposed to the, well, we don't exactly know what the commission meant?
Wouldn't the clear and objective standards come about in the code?
They would,
Yes.
but, you know, any smart cookie would go back to the comprehensive plan and could argue that even though the code says X, the comprehensive plan is saying this is reasonable, what is a reasonable density, and I define, or whoever the person is, I define a reasonable density as X, you know, taking it to an extreme.
I'm fine with the changes as proposed by Commissioner Mitchell, and reasonable is fine with me.
Bill,
Reasonable is at a point in time, and I think reasonable can be defined, can be judged at a point in time. Is it reasonable to do that today? Yes. Is it reasonable to do it in 10 years? I guess we'll find out. So reasonable works for me. I don't need to go further than that.
I see Bill wants to.
I was just prepared in case you had any questions. What I would comment is something similar to what Commissioner O'Donnell said, that reasonableness is somewhat in the eye of the beholder, and it accommodates the issue you had indicated that what's reasonable now may not be reasonable 10 years from now for whatever reason, and that provides that flexibility for that future commission to do that through the clear and objective provisions that we're going to have in our code.
You just made me have a flashback to the reasonable man theory from law school.
I thought about it, but didn't go there.
So the other change would come where it says maximum levels, that's highlighted in the dark blue under 3.5.A. That would also change there as well, as that's what you're recommending. Okay.
Right. On the left, that was adopted by the Planning Commission.
Right.
On the right would just match the language on the left.
Okay, so we're gonna change that to be the same.
So it would read something along the lines of enhance and efficient use of existing public facilities and services by considering development at reasonable levels permitted in the comprehensive plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good.
Thank you.
And last but not least?
Okay. And now on to the comments from PGE.
Yeah, so what I was going to say was that I understand what PGE is wanting to get at, but what my concern about it has to do with the staff comment that suggested wording that supports the facilities could conflict with underlying or adjacent zoning that encourages other uses which support the city's long-term needs and visions. So I don't think anybody wants a substation next to them, particularly if it's a residential area. So there's got to be a balance somewhere. I don't want to just have it say, allowed to expand and improve facilities as needed. I think that we need to have some level of review to determine where they are and the expansion matches what we have planned for our area, whatever area that is.
If I may, so goal 2 of chapter 3, so I guess let me back up just a little bit. So chapter 3 is our connected infrastructure. And goal 2 reads, ensure public utilities and infrastructure are maintained and improved to adequately serve all existing areas of Oregon City and can be extended to serve newly developing areas in a logical and fiscally responsible manner. I believe that more succinctly gets at the gist of PGE's comments and leaves the land use part, the zoning part, the development part in the zoning code is where some of that determination should be made.
So say the last part again. Just the last part. You said you just dropped right off in terms
I'm
of
sorry.
by being able to hear.
Maybe the mic dropped out. So the land use determinations and determining whether, as you mentioned, is a substation appropriate somewhere, that's in the zoning code. That's something that can live in the zoning code through a land use process and land use review.
Well, it's one thing if it's already there and they want to expand within the existing footprint. It's another thing if it's already there and then they buy some land and say, okay, we're going to expand it and there's an impact. That's what I want. I don't want us to be in that situation where they're saying that the utility needs overrides the other goals and policies that we have in the community in terms of livability, aesthetics, whatever. I mean, because, they're not the most attractive things, whatever. One of the facilities I volunteer at, there's a substation right next to it, and I think if I could go back in time, I would not recommend having that substation next to a National Register property. People kind of come there and go, why is that there? Well, because it is, and it's been there for a long time, but it's not conducive to the adjacent land uses that currently exist.
I agree with the mayor. I think if you're going to do anything, as far as I go, is encouraged. I don't want to put the public utility people in a superior position to any other consideration. So if you want to change that to encourage, but allowed means allowed is you can just do it. So I stand with you on this, Mayor.
Would we encourage other providers for water?
Nope.
I don't think we would.
Nope.
Do you want to remove it entirely?
The whole
So
thing's
the
a little
language,
sketchy.
language in front of you is not part of the current comprehensive
Right,
plan,
that's
but
not-
it's suggested
that's
by
not in the plan.
PGE.
I think the
No,
goal,
I
to
know
me,
it's
the goal
not.
2 that Ms. Hurd-Ravitch read covers it.
Yeah.
So we don't need to deal with this,
So
dismiss this.
I would
do we
leave it
have
out.
that
Fine with me.
pull up to what you just read?
The goal?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's see. I've got it in here. Okay, is that, yeah, so
So goal 2.
goal 2.
Are you satisfied with that based on your discussions? Because I'm assuming
This did not,
Ms. Hernandez presented at Planning Commission.
no,
No, she did not?
no.
Okay.
Those three, that all came up after the Planning Commission adoption,
Okay.
right?
Right, this
Okay.
wording that you have in your packet came up after the Planning Commission meeting.
Been great if it had been at the Planning Commission meeting. but- Okay, I think if we leave goal 2 as it is, as suggested by Commissioner O'Donnell, that's going to cover everything. Again, I don't want to give, as you stated, the utility, no matter who it is, carte blanche to kind of just do whatever.
Agreed.
Correct. Okay.
You have one more thing?
I'm just,
Please.
thank you. Forgive me for my lapse in memory in this because we've gone back and forth a few times on this now. But was it that they originally were strategies and then we changed them to goals or vice versa?
So we've always had goals.
Right.
We have policies. We changed the word of policies to strategies.
Okay.
That's
And
where we changed it, not there.
then when we went through over the summer and tried to add some more kind of definition, we added another layer, and that layer became the strategies. We went back to policies.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I'll entertain a motion.
Hold on.
Mayor, it is scheduled as a
Yes,
public hearing.
Public hearing, yeah, okay. So let's open the public hearing.
So-
And I don't have the disclaimer in front of me.
All right,
I should have it memorized by now, I apologize.
Well, this one, as you know, land use comes in two flavors, one
Legislative.
quasi-judicial, one legislative.
Legislative.
Quasi-judicial, you're acting as a legislator or as a judge, you're deciding facts, you've got to operate within the facts in front of you and with no bias. In this situation, you're acting as a legislature. Your job is to be biased. Your job is to be aware of the community and to make your best policy decision to guide the future of the city. So there's a lot less strictures on what you do, so it isn't quite as directed as the quasi-judicial applications. However, there are certain criteria that the commission weighs in this, and those are set out in 17.68.020, such as proposal being consistent with the applicable goals and with those types of things. So any testimony should be addressed towards the criteria or to changes in the legislative process or legislative amendment that they want to make. The one concern that there is conflict of interest, and that is whether the adoption of this could or will have a financial impact on you as a commissioner. Typically, when you're dealing with a conflict of interest, say an award of a contract to your brother's, company, you clearly would have a conflict of interest there. This, when we're adopting policies, is much more diffuse and much more difficult to tell, but there could be situations that might have an impact. It seems unlikely in this situation, if we were changing the zoning on property you own, but that might be one thing, but that's not happening. We're adopting policies. But to the extent you do have conflict of interest that you believe your financial interests could or will be affected, this is a time to disclose that.
All right, so let's go down the line. Mr. O'Donnell?
Well, I have no conflicts of interest whatsoever.
Mr. Smith?
None that I know of.
Mr. Mitchell?
No conflict of interest.
Nope, none.
Mr. Morrow? And I don't. I guess I would say generally, if you're to be fairly esoteric about this, we will all benefit financially from having a much more livable community, and it will enhance probably our property values to some degree, because Oregon City will be so desirably wonderful, but I don't think we can quantify that to each of us individually. I think it's a community-wide issue that by adopting this, we hope to set the framework for Oregon City for the future that will be better than it is now.
That sounds appropriate to me, and so with that, I think you're ready for the public hearing unless...
All right, so we'll open the public hearing. I don't have any slips for anybody to testify tonight. So being that there is no public testimony, I will close the public hearing, ask for deliberation and a motion. And we don't have to have deliberation because we kind of had it.
Well, I will move to approve the first reading of ordinance 22-1009, adopting new comprehensive plan OC 2040 with changes as recommended by the Planning Commission and noted tonight at the City Commission meeting.
Excellent. Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Bill, do you need to read the title?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Bill.
Boy, thank you.
Normally we jump the gun.
First time for everything. Ordinance number 22-1009, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City adopting a new comprehensive plan by repealing the 2004 comprehensive plan and replacing it with the OC 2040 comprehensive plan map, Oregon City Urban Reserves map, and ancillary documents.
Do we need to read in the changes?
I think we read them in when we... So Ms. Hurd-Ravitch was asking about reading in the changes, and when we went through, we identified specifically those changes to art to artistic and the changes to goal 3.51.
Right, 3.51, and no change to goal number 2 under the other
Infrastructure.
section.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, roll call.
Commissioner Adam Morrow,
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell,
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith,
Abstain.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell,
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And I want to thank everybody again, and particularly Anise, for all of your work and perseverance through this process. I think it's something we can all be proud of, and thank you to the staff at 3J Consulting for their support to us in this process, and you will be hearing from us again, I'm assuming.
Mayor McGriff?
Yes.
Can I just add one thing on that same line? From the beginning, I was really concerned if we could pull off a public process during COVID. They pulled it off. Thank you.
And again, thank you to our staff for all of their work, all the way from the top to the bottom, because everybody had a little piece of this, and it's really important. I think we've made some excellent progress, and I'm really excited about it, you know. But then Frank would say, well, you like that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff. But so do you, Mike. All right. Next on our agenda, we have under general business, we have 2 items. So let's take the elevator contract under item 7D, personal services agreement with Downtown Oregon City Association for elevator staffing services. And who's taking this one?
Mr. Lewis will come up and take this one.
Good evening. So I have the staff report in front of me, or at least the staff report items.
I guess it'd be good to hear the question, unless you'd like a staff report on this. Maybe we can just start with what the question is and we can respond.
How deep do you want me to go?
Well, I pulled this, I have a couple questions, and I think, actually, it's comments and maybe a conversation that might involve Liz from downtown. This is going into a 3-year contract.
Right,
correct?
this is a
Evolving
3-year
3 years.
contract that starts in January.
The reason I'm wondering about this is prior to 2020, the plan was to continue on with staffing at the elevator, where we would have an actual staff member in the cab, and that aside from that contract with downtown, the commission set aside money for staffing at a separate level for tourism. Not only did we set aside money for tourism, we spent a small fortune putting a tourism desk in the elevator. And so the original plan was to have 2 staff people at the elevator, one inside the cab and one as tourism staff. Because of COVID, clearly that eliminated the position of having the staff member in the cab, which the funding for the tourism piece went away or wasn't used. And therefore, the cab operator was now the tourism staff person outside of the cab. That is, from what I understand, a complete temporary change, because that change was COVID-related only. I don't think we're out of COVID yet, and so therefore, it's probably not at a position that we put the staff back into the cab. But that's what the plan is eventually, or that's what the original plan was to do after we got through COVID. So if somehow that happens within the next 3 years, we have no ability to figure out how that change happens, where we put the staff member back in the cab. And then it does not address the situation that the original plan was to have a tourism person staffing that desk. Now, so this is a broader conversation between Public Works, downtown, and tourism. I just want to remind the commission of what the plan was. Now, clearly, this is a different commission, but we spent a lot of time getting to that point. And so I worry that signing this contract the way it is, especially when it clearly says in the report that there will be someone in the cab at all times. It says that on page 10 of the proposal, which I believe is actually wording from the old that just didn't get updated. But multiple times it mentions operator of the cab, which there is none at the moment. So that's, I want to kind of just figure that out. And if we get through mid-cycle of this proposal and we realize that we're in a place where it's safe or at a point that we decide with the person that the staff goes back into the cab, then how do we deal with the other part? And I guess I don't want to also forget the commitment that we made to having a visitor staff person there that just didn't exist, that didn't happen because of COVID and because we forgot about it, or that money was shifted. Well, it didn't get shifted somewhere else. It just went back into the general fund. So we allocated money for a purpose that never got used. And I asked about that for years, but never got, direct answers. It wasn't spent in other things. Well, I guess it was. It was went back to the general fund.
So can we back up just to try to separate this out? So the issue with the kiosk is that the kiosk was not created by the city. Downtown got a Metro Enhancement.
Oh, I'm fully aware of that. That's my
Metro
point.
Enhancement grant, correct?
Yes.
And then it was given to the city to be put there.
Right.
Yes.
So this is Liz Hannum, Executive Director of Downtown Oregon City Association.
Yeah, so we got a Metro Enhancement grant and implemented the cab and then donated it to the city. So unfortunately, there wasn't a lot of thought about the operation at the time the grant was proposed. And so that's why we came to the commission for that, I think it was $20,000 for somebody to staff the kiosk in addition to the cab operator as a tourism type position, as a part-time position. So we didn't obviously need that because we couldn't have somebody in the cab for COVID. But I think we're all open to the discussions about what we want to do, what we want it to look like.
How many people are we allowing in the cab now? I mean, I know during the Christmas thing, they were crammed in there like sardines, and I didn't get in.
Yeah, the sign says 2 at a time, but during high times, and because it's not manned, that's not
We can't really
enforced.
We can't really say only 5 people in like we did before.
Yeah,
we're
yeah.
limiting.
The sign on the elevator still says, try to keep it to 2 in the cab.
So we answered the kiosk question.
No.
So the second
Well,
question.
no, I don't think we
how it got
answered,
there.
I don't think we answered any of the questions. No, I know how it got there. That was not a question I had. My question is, remember that that the whole purpose of putting that desk there
Yes, was to have 2 people.
right. So I'm assuming at some point we go back to that. And I assume at some point we go back to someone in the cab. I assume that also might happen in the next 3 years, and this doesn't account for any of that. So I want some sort of answer of a plan of what we do and how we decide at what point we go back to that, whether or not we're eliminating. I also have a small assumption that the ties between downtown and tourism are at the point now that that's a non-issue, which also is a concern to me. The fact that we are negating programs that were initiated because our economic development department cannot connect with our downtown is a problem. And so there's more pieces than just public works here. But I just want to figure out how we address this in the next 3 years, if and when it is a part that we can get someone back in that cap.
Mr. Kavaisman, I guess my question has to do with trying to help solve the issue that Mr. Smith is bringing up, is that as far as I can understand, I haven't seen anything come out from anybody, the CDC, that says that the COVID epidemic is like over and done and
Right.
so I think short of having some authority beyond, because the city has no authority to declare that, beyond our authority, that would need to happen. I'm just speaking off the top of my head, it's my opinion, based on what I know, that we could not basically say, okay, now we can have somebody in the cab, even though we are now being advised, but in some places they're recommending masks, et cetera, et cetera. We're not quite back where we were, but we're not out of the woods yet. So is there a way that we could put some sort of a contingency in this to say that we can revisit that when we get that declaration? Because I would hate to impose on any vendor, let alone, ourselves, to say, okay, now you have somebody in the cab when we don't really.
Maybe, I don't think that's a legal question. We do contract amendments
all the time,
frequently.
Well, and I was going to point out that it's a personal service agreement, and pretty much all of our personal service agreement has the ability for the city to terminate, with notice pretty much at any time. So to the extent circumstances changes and we want to do something different, we have that authority, whether through a contract amendment or other options. It's really a matter of tracking it and saying, now's the time we want to do something different, and getting that direction.
So could we, at this point in time, approve the contract subject to us coming back at a later time with a contract amendment after we have a discussion with tourism about the funding that you spoke of, so that it could be, I don't know if it's a contingency fund or whatever we do, but say, okay, we understand that right now, today, and right now in a year, probably we don't have the ability to do this because of health considerations, but that it is our intent that this contract could be amended at some point in time during the 3-year period to allow for that second staff person, as we did have in the past.
Yes is the answer. The question is, how explicit do we want to make it in the agreement? Because we can,
No, I'm just saying that we would make that as part of our
the motion. Yeah.
Not in this agreement, but that we will be coming back. We need to have a discussion with Mr. Graham, obviously, about where did that money go?
Well, I'm over that conversation,
okay, all right,
actually.
Over that conversation. I'm trying to craft a solution.
So I want to make it clear, I'm not intending to, try to force us to having someone in the cabin at a time that's not ready for that.
No, I get that.
I just want this to be, I've mainly wanted to bring this up so the commission understood what the progression was and how we got there, so that we don't forget that, because I don't think it's clear in this paperwork. So I just want some sort of a way to revisit at some point the idea of how the person is back in the cab, and then that's really it. But later, I think at another time, another place, we can rehave the conversation about how tourism should work in this town, and we can actually maybe fix that piece. That's for another day, because we can't have anyone on a separate staff level until we deal with that other piece. So I just want it out there so we know and don't forget it. And just change some of the wording in these proposals, because the way it's read, it implies that we either are expecting someone to be in the cab, and we're really not at this point. So I think we just need to clean those things up, and that's really it.
So I appreciate the wording thing. I am seeing it here. I think it's a small difference, because the cab operator or the tourism person, they do tend to kind of help out in the cab from time to time and do those kind of things. So I think what we're talking about here is the number of hours, and the fact that we've got, our current contract is set to expire at the end of the year. So this is a timely decision that we were trying to get into you as quickly as we could. It's a nearly $600,000 contract for 3 years of service. And I think if the city commission wants to amend that, there's some other things that are on the plate right now that we're also kind of thinking about with the bathroom, for instance. That's a question in my mind as to how we manage that. So Liz and I have talked about some other elements. And it doesn't, that's something we can bring back to you. But I agree, if there's a tourism element that I'm missing here, and especially if the conditions change. We revamped the cab because I don't remember that timeline, but I remember there was this desire not to have that person and use them instead as a tourism person, as opposed to just supplementing that with more. So
No, it was both.
I can't quite
It was
always
both.
remember all
It was
that,
both.
but I will get to the bottom of that, and
Well,
we
I
can
think-
bring it back.
I think the suggestion to go ahead and approve the contract, but as part of the motion that we come back and we revisit this, given the ongoing health consideration, because that's really going to be the key to the whole thing.
So do you want that when that official change happens, or sometime
Well,
sooner?
we would just put that as part of the motion, not in this contract. It would be part of the motion that we approve the contract and that we come back and revisit it, subject to the change in, I don't know what the specific term is.
I don't know if this is helpful, but we've been pretty good partners with Public
Absolutely.
Works, and we're open to whatever. And so I don't know that it's necessarily has to be contracted because we make decisions together.
I said motion, not the contract.
Yes, but I'm talking about when we put somebody back in the cab, if we put somebody back in the cab, if we get a second person. I think it's an ongoing conversation, and we're open to a lot of that. And I don't know that you necessarily have to put it on an agenda at some point, because I think we're good enough partners that we can work together. I don't know that it has to be a formal thing.
Do we have an idea of, well, I know we have an idea of numbers in terms of ridership. Do we know at what times? Because one of the things that, I would hope that the commission would consider in the future, or even downtown, if the need is there. We expanded the hours, how many years ago?
Of 5, almost?
Okay.
Almost 5.
Yeah.
And we've kind of kept consistent with that. My question, I guess, is there been ridership increased in the evenings? We wouldn't ever probably go beyond 10 o'clock, but I always thought it was weird that we don't go to 10 o'clock, since that's when the park closes. And, so on the weekend nights, is there, a level of ridership that would warrant that in the future, or even extending it, to that extra half hour on the weekends and maybe an extra hour on the weekdays or something? And maybe that's 3 years from now, I don't know, but I want to have that dialogue more as we go forward too.
Yeah, and I think pre-COVID, we could have had that conversation, but we're probably not at that.
Okay, so
session
maybe
yet.
at the 3-year level, we'll check and see.
Yeah, I think that's probably,
Cool.
and if it changes, we'll come back to you and see if we need to add to that.
And I might as well throw this out, this was a little one. What happened to the elevator passes?
So they were gone before I arrived in Oregon City?
Were those, I assume those are printed by the city and not downtown, so I'd like to know why those.
I think, I'll have to check this and get back to you, but I want to say there's a cabinet in our new
Unfortunately, I
building that
think they
has.
probably have certain
that has those.
signatures on them that are no longer
I
valid.
don't remember what, did they have a
Which begs the question
signature?
that they should be maybe generic, but.
It could be historic. They're historic elevator passes.
I would love us not to forget about the elevator passes.
But
All right.
Commissioner
I think
Smith,
we did add
it's
signatures
free.
to them.
Just saying it's free. You're welcome to ride anytime you want.
Hey, that was not what I was told when I got my elevator pass. I was told I had to show it every time I came to Oregon City. And it
We
was
do
signed
buy
by Elaine Woolsey.
Yeah, we do buy stickers that we give to kids that say, "I rode the elevator," with the elevator on it. So we've gotten a modern version, I guess.
The problem with the stickers, Liz, is they're stuck everywhere all over downtown.
I know.
We actually started to
But we have
design a
a
new
clean team
elevator.
guy that takes care of
elevator
that.
pass. John's going to look in his cabinet.
Yeah, we'll find out.
Okay, so
I think
can I
there's a box of them
Can I
somewhere.
entertain a motion?
Could I ask that we put into the motion that this comes back no later than September 6, 2023?
Okay.
Just so there's some expectation.
I feel
If it
comfortable
comes
with
earlier
having some timeline or some guide that we're looking at.
or soon, whatever,
Right.
I just randomly picked a
And when
number.
Rocky has old age and doesn't have his memory anymore, we'll have it memorialized, so we don't have to rely on Rocky's memory anymore. Okay, can I entertain a motion with that addition?
So moved.
Second, is there a second?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we amend the motion to add no later than whatever Tony just said.
September 6, 2023.
All right, let's have the roll call.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell? Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, parking, my favorite topic. Oh, excuse me, actually, Public Works is my favorite topic. I don't want to slight Mr. Lewis. My second favorite topic.
Good evening, mayors and commissioners, mayor and commissioners. Captain Sean Davis with the police department. Tonight, code enforcement manager Ryan Kersey and I are going to present to you the parking kiosk replacement project. Last meeting, you're aware there were several questions that came up. Tonight, we'll do the presentation about the project, why the kiosks need to be replaced, and answer the questions you had from last meeting. Before we start, I want to emphasize this replacement is not an expansion into new areas of downtown, and you will see we have presented you with several draft options where the kiosk could go. This is also for you to better understand why 16 kiosks were recommended for purchase. I'd like to add that the previous draft map also had kiosks identified on 15th Street. That was a draft map, and that should not have been there, so we apologize. The goal of this project is to replace all existing outdated kiosks and all coin-operated meters in the downtown area between 5th Street, which is Highway 99E, to 14th Street. Again, these are existing enforced areas currently. Before the kiosks are placed, if they're approved, there'll be a process to work with Public Works Engineering to make sure that they are not placed in an area that would interfere with ADA or any visual lines of sight for motorists. Your approval tonight will allow us to move forward with a contract and get the kiosks ordered. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Code Enforcement Manager Ryan Kersey.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Commission.
We've got it. Here comes.
Who's got the clicker?
Thank you.
I knew Jacob didn't have it.
Thank you for having us here. I did want to read that kiosks that are being proposed are replacing the old kiosks and the coin-operated meters in the areas that have always been enforced for years. There's no new areas of enforcement. So some of the current kiosk problems we're having. There we go. Is my microphone on now? Okay. Some of the current kiosk problems we're having is that the current kiosks are 5 years beyond their life, the end of life cycle. The parts are no longer available. They were custom ordered from Germany many years ago. They were also, up until about a month ago, operating on 2G wireless data. And so the cellular carriers cut that off about 3.5, 4 weeks ago, and so they no longer take credit cards. So they're only operating on coin and cash right now. Kiosks are not compatible with wireless upgrades, otherwise we already would have done those. They also will not accept the new thinner generation bank or credit cards that are out there. And they do not provide detailed receipts for tracking and audit purposes, and do not have pay-by-plate options. So you must return the receipt and make it visible in the vehicle. One of the issues that we have with the coin-operated meters downtown is the daily maintenance of emptying the meters. It's very time-consuming for staff. That takes away from some of the other metered time parking that we have on the bluff and on the north end for that to be monitored and enforced on. Often the meters are damaged. We remove super glue stickers and stuff daily. I think you, Commissioner, you spoke about the stickers downtown, so our staff does that almost every day. We get things jammed into them all the time, so we do have theft of entire meter heads, so we do have some replacements that we have to go through on that. There's also no means to track the money that goes into those, so when we take it out, we don't know what's been put into there. So that's a concern that we want to make sure we get. Blocking the right-of-way in front of businesses, we have hundreds of meters downtown on posts. This project will allow us to take those posts out. So we'll take all those meter posts out, we'll put just the one kiosk on each block, and we'll move forward with that. The meter parts are not available, so we would have to, if we did want to keep the meters, we'd have to look at purchasing some of the newer meters from the Duncan Meter Company at a different expense.
Is that the coin-operated ones or the kiosk ones?
That was referencing just the coin ones.
So they make newer coin ones now that you can actually use cards in and things like that that'll track. That's kind of what we would have to move to if we didn't, go forward with the kiosk.
But we're not having a problem with the coin-operated ones accepting money, are we?
No.
Okay.
No, it's just the accessing parts.
Right.
It's getting hard on the older ones. So I think the manager prior to me received a large amount of ones from the city of Salem. So we've been actually harvesting parts from them to fix the meters we have currently. So
I know I spoke to the chief about 4 years ago about the fact that there are people that collect those things.
Mm-hmm.
And if there's any resale value that, if we can get any money out of them by selling them to collectors, I'd say please go do it.
Yeah, that would be something we'd have to discuss, definitely. If we got rid of them.
Maybe somebody, I don't know if there's anybody else out there that wants ours for parts, but, like I said, people ask me all the time, if we get rid of them, are they going to be available for sale? And I go, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of people collect them, definitely. So we put together some updated maps. These are the areas right now, current and old coin-operated meter locations. So in the red, these are all areas of existing coin meters downtown. And then the green, these are areas that are already metered, but metered by a kiosk machine. We wanted to talk about some of the parking that we have on 13th and Main Street and also 14th Street, kind of on the south side of Subaru. That's covered by meters right now. We would be switching that out also as part of the plan to a kiosk. And that would be the northernmost part of our metered area. And then this is kind of an example of what we would do. I know we talked about 9th Street. We currently have meters through there. But this is the example on the right. The picture on the right is actually a loaner kiosk that we got from our vendor. We got that about 9 months ago because the one there broke and we had no means to fix it. So we kind of, worked with them and said, hey, would you be able to have a loaner machine? And they provided it to us. It's worked well. It takes all types of cards, runs off the new 4G data, provides excellent reports. We've also implemented the hotspot parking app. And so we put those at every kiosk location so people do have another option if they want to just scan that with their phone and pay for their parking that way. So new kiosk benefits. We're looking at the convenience of paying by card, cash, and coin. That was pretty critical. Most of the proposals we received only offered 2 forms of payment. We want to make sure that people visiting any age, any technology level could basically show up and make payment for their parking. So that's in the current RFP is all 3 coin, or all 3 payment options, card, cash, and coin. They do have the faster 4G wireless service, updated solar technology for longer, more efficient runtime, ability to upgrade the internal parts. This actually comes into play. We have the parking kiosk down at our municipal lot at 12th and Main. We've been able to upgrade that one. Most recently this year, they got the new 4G wireless data card. So having that newer design kiosk, we can build on that in the future if new technology comes out. We can also turn on the pay-by-plate feature. And this is basically so you don't have to return back to your vehicle and put a receipt in it. You can just at the kiosk type in your plate number, pay for how much parking you want, and then go about any of your business. You don't have to take it back to your car, mess with any of that. Our parking officers will actually go through, just, type in the plate, check for payment that way. The kiosks all talk to the system, so.
Is that similar to what they use in Portland, the parking kitty? They only put in your license number.
Yeah, we were able to turn that on with our hotspot parking app, which has been a huge benefit because people can just scan that or have the application downloaded and just walk straight into where they're going and don't have to worry about finding a kiosk or any of that. So that's been a good benefit. This also allows us to remove the 200 coin meters and all the poles throughout downtown Oregon City. There will be 3 small spots remaining of about 4 meters each. One is above the elevator at 6th and High. The other one's 99E by the bridge, kind of at 7th on that west side. We have 4 sets of meters there. We're not planning on putting a kiosk there right now with this plan. And then there's the 4 meter stalls right in front of the mill, basically between 99E and where it dead ends at 4th there. This will also then free up the time for staff to be able to enforce the time limits and keep vehicles moving in the areas that are not metered. So they're just basically time enforced. So that's all of the Bluff, the areas throughout the north end of downtown. That'll help with that. So we're coming to the locations of kiosks now. And basically, we're going to install them all along Main Street from 99E down to 14th and all the side streets in between. Our current plan is to move them to the corners of each intersection, and we'll show that on the next slide. But basically, it's to maximize visibility and also keep the numbers of required kiosks that we need down. And I did actually make an example on the next one. So our current kiosks are on this map. You can see they're located mainly in the core, and then we have one on the north end up there in our municipal lot. That one will stay there. That one's been one that we've been able to upgrade. It's probably about 6 or 7 years old, that one is. So that's been good. On the next one, these are the proposed locations of the requested 16 new kiosks, and they're indicated by the red stars on the map. So we start on the corner of 99E in Main, and we go all the way up to 14th in Main. Moving these to the corners, obviously it keeps our numbers. On the next slide, I'll show you, it actually requires about 21 kiosks if we do them mid-block. So we found that putting them on the corners basically makes it more visible. The only one that's a little bit different is the one at 6th and Railroad. That one has to be up around the corner, basically to handle both sides of the street up there. We're not going to increase any of the current metered areas. All of that discussion will be coming through the commission and the planning department through the parking study. So any of that stuff will be considered and responded to then. Make sure I didn't get anything else on there we covered. Oh yes, and the final locations themselves, we will have to obviously go through the Public Works Engineering Department to make sure that we're ADA compliant with each location. So they may be set in, anywhere from 5 to 10 feet from the corners, just depending to make sure clear vision of the intersection and people can travel safely by each one. I did include a mid-block map proposal here, and it kind of shows the increase from 16 to 21 kiosks that we would need if we put them mid-block. And I know currently some of the kiosks we have in that core area are mid-block, and so this would kind of just expand the program throughout, but kind of give you a visual idea of what it would look like and what it would take to cover that entire area if we did it mid-block. So the last slide we have is the current revenue that had been generated from August 2021 to August 2022. August 2021 was the first full month after the COVID pandemic where the parking fees were suspended, and those were turned back on at the end of July 2021. And so we recorded it from the very first month up until August 2022. The first line, the parking revenue, includes the meters, the kiosks, and the parking permits. The second one is the hotspot revenue, which is the mobile parking app that we have. And then that one, the hotspot parking revenue didn't start really until about March of this year. So kind of maybe mid-report cycle. So this is only generated since, March of 2022 for the hotspot. And then the citation revenue includes the fines, late fees, and collections. And then the total revenue is listed at the bottom.
Questions? Please go right ahead.
All right, no questions.
Oh my gosh.
A few apologies.
Oh, thank you.
So I pulled this off the agenda last meeting, mainly because the discrepancy in the number, and that was the main thing. And then we got off on another bit, which I clearly believed there were no meters there. I walk that all the time, and meaning from 10th Street down. And of course, there are meters there, and they've been there for long. So I think I was reverting to a place in my brain years ago that I'd like to go back to, but that's happening a lot. But so yeah, there are meters that go all the way down, and they have, and I don't know why I never noticed them or thought about it. Then I realized that the times that I'm frequently down there parking is at a time that you don't use them, and so I don't even really realize that they were there, but they are there. So I apologize to the chief for the last meeting on that, but I do appreciate the clarification of all this because I think it's well done. I'm one that wished the old meters never had left in the beginning because I don't like the feel of the new ones, but I'm ready
By the
to.
point ones?
Yeah, but I'm okay with us going forward on this. I don't have a problem with that. But I plead with some organization in this town to apply for a Metro Enhancement Grant to wrap those things because they're ugly. I would love to see, in fact, I wish there would have been a conversation with tourism about how to wrap those in a way that was conducive to tourism or to, local points of, this is something we can still do in the future, for sure.
Well, let me throw something in there. I have been asking about getting new garbage cans. I love the ones they have in Portland that are wrapped, and that is a public works thing that falls into, he's going, whoa, wait a minute.
Well, but I want to kind of, this is part of why I'm concerned that we compartmentalize departments so much that we don't integrate these things. I mean, we're putting meters downtown. The first thing should be, what do they look like? Should we wrap them? Can we talk to downtown? Can we talk to tourism to figure out if that's part of doing that? The other thing is we're not having to put electric in for these, right?
These are all
solar.
Okay, but so we're not doing anything with that? Okay.
We have to mold them to cement, and that's the only.
Okay. Because I was going to go on to the next thing where we could combine that with creating, we're going to have to do electricity for poles down Main Street. So tying anything that we're doing with that for the downtown light project that we approved, that this public is super behind, and yet we haven't been able to figure out how to do it. So Public Works, we're looking forward to how we get those light poles put up for that grant that we did, and this could have been a way to do that if we had to put electricity in, but we don't. But anyway, awesome. That's it. I don't have any questions.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Really don't have much to say. I mean, I do think there's a concentration of these things down the south end by 99. Some of those are pretty darn short blocks, so maybe look at the allocation of where you put these things, but that's for those guys to do and not for me. And other than that, the plain statement about revenues exceed expenditures within the course of 1 year. What's to say? Let's do it.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yeah, just a quick question. I know these take credit cards or debit cards. Could they take a preloaded card? What I'm thinking is like a downtown merchant, $50 purchase, and you get a $2 card that you could use the next time you come downtown that's preloaded.
Yeah, I can check on the gift cards and I can report back on that. I know the one feature the new machines do have is it allows us more control. So if we do have something where we wanted to look at maybe some sort of, the merchant kind of validate some of their parking maybe for a future purchase, we can look at coupons or codes that they could type in, things like that. I just don't know if it would process gift cards though. I could check on that.
I'd like to know that obviously not a make or break thing on whether or not this is a good idea, but I think it could be a great add-on that downtown merchants would like.
Or they could give somebody a dollar card or something to put in the machine.
Right.
Here's $1, you get a card that.
Right.
Have anything, Mr. Morrow? I just had a couple of questions. So one of the things I know that you all are concerned about is the timing. So has the vendor given you any indication of if you ordered them tomorrow or whatever the day is, how long will they take to get here? Did you say it's like too sweet, get it here as fast as you can? Or are we getting it'll get here when it gets here?
They have a pretty well identified timeline, and it's somewhere between that month and a half to 3 months maximum.
Yikes.
They're being built in California once we sign a contract, so they're not too far away, but they do have also the option to wrap them. So that would be an extra cost, but if we did work something out during this with tourism quickly, we could get something put on them during the build process.
Okay. And I guess speaking from a parking downtown user, I'm concerned about them being near intersections because unfortunately we have too many people in this town that like to drive on the sidewalk, and I don't want to see them hit. And anything that we've had near a corner, I don't know how they do it, but I'm sure there's a way to do it. I prefer, my personal preferences prefer the mid-block. I'm used to any other community that I've gone into, they're always mid-block. I get out, I look mid-block to see where the thing is, and they're usually somewhere, about halfway in between. And I know that means ordering more, but I think people are used to having them mid-block. which is where they're looking for them. So you put it down on a corner, I'm just thinking of the corner of Mesa Fresca. There's an obelisk there, there's an art piece there, there's this there. I don't know where that would think, and there's a curb extension. I don't know where the thing would go. So that one, it's like, okay, mid-block makes much more sense.
And that's why with the existing plan, we have to literally work with, engineering to make sure they're in a good location. And I've seen a lot of the utilities and underground infrastructure already that we just have to work around.
Right. So I would say go with Plan B, and then if you can cut back, but let's make
So
it.
is that a motion to get more, or?
Pardon?
Is that a motion to get more?
I'd order the 21, and, if they work out, you've got some extras. So, I just think that some of the locations that you showed on the map that are at the intersections, like I said, I could just see cars hitting them.
Mid-block does minimize the chance of damage by perpendicular
Somebody
access
coming
when
around the
somebody
corner,
gets
asked Mr. Lewis about the baller next to the coin corner that's probably been taken out about 20,000 times.
And you're right, people look mid-block.
Yep. So I will entertain a motion.
If we're going to
Yes.
entertain a motion for 21, I guess we'd like the chance to come back with the cost, because this was being paid for with ARPA funds, and we allocated all those ARPA funds to projects for the revenues that were available from ARPA.
Maybe you can get the 16 done with the option to purchase the additional 5 at the same cost, and then get the project going.
And we did confirm that for you from the last meeting. They did say as long as the costs don't increase on their end, they're not going to increase them for us. Shipping would be the only increase
We want to
over
just get
time.
this going as quickly as possible so they can start making them.
We will call them tonight.
Yeah, because I'm telling you,
They might be watching.
Yeah.
I have to keep my head down when I'm in the local businesses and somebody comes in and starts talking about the parking. And I just told the shop people, do not out me. Just let me sit here and I'm not going to pay attention to what they're saying. Would you like to make a motion?
Pull it up. I move to approve the proposal with Northwest Parking Equipment Company.
Is there a second? Second. All right, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Commissioner Adam Morrow?
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell? Mayor Denise McGriff?
Aye.
Motion passes.
So just so I'm clear, we are buying 16 as proposed and working with engineering to locate them on the
With the option
corners.
of 21 if we can get it for the good price, is what Mr. O'Donnell said. I heard him say that.
Yeah, but that
Hold on,
wasn't
that's not the
necessarily the
motion.
motion, but I'm
Well,
okay
the
with it.
motion said approve the proposal, so,
And the proposal right now is the 16.
okay?
So
Okay, so we still didn't
are
answer the question.
we asking staff to come back with cost, ARPA funding, whatever, on an additional 5 at our next meeting?
Okay.
Okay.
We
All
can do
right.
that.
Propose where the money would come for the next one.
Buy the 16 asking, you have the option to buy the additional 5.
I think he said they did.
Specific time period.
I did check on that
Yeah, he
after the
did.
last meeting, and he did confirm that we can buy more. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
thank you.
thank you.
I
So
think it should be in the
not
record.
knowing if there's a discount on quantity, if we take the 225,397 divided by 16, multiply that by 5, that's roughly $70,500 more dollars. 70,436.
And our cost is 225, I believe, that
Correct.
16, and our annual revenues, I believe, are like 290.
Yeah.
Correct,
So you can
yeah.
cover it anyhow. You're going to cover it the first year, whether you buy 16 or 21.
That's what I was thinking.
So we will be bringing back a discussion about buying 5 more. Okay.
It might be good to hear the parking study too, right? Because there could be possibility of different avenues the commission wants to go. So we could have that, but we could also have a discussion with the vendor of could there be more down the road too in these other areas? So we'll
You started
entertain
on
that
your
too.
16, if you decide your placement merits 21, and it looks like you get, just come back with say we'd like to go the additional 5.
All right, yeah, please don't commingle it with the parking study.
We'll keep it separate.
Thank you. All right. Communications,
I have nothing tonight, thank you.
commissioners. Please. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Chief Davis, Acting Chief Davis.
So the Youth Advisory Commission applications are now live.
Hey.
Yes, and I'm very excited. Thank you to the city manager for working with IT to get that on the website. We've decided of a deadline of January 31st. And so
Who decided?
the city manager and myself in consultation.
Okay, well, nobody consulted the rest of it, and since I'm involved with it, I'm not comfortable with January 31st being the deadline. I have not had an opportunity to make it through all the schools. I was supposed to do 2 meetings this month in December, and school district staff people canceled it.
Okay.
Because
What
they're
date-
busy.
What date would the commission like the Youth Advisory Commission applications to be open until?
I would like it to be open for at least another month after that so I can get through the schools.
This is a discussion for the commission. I'm not sure.
I wish that you had discussed this with me before you did this. Since you know that I'm involved in it, I would have appreciated the
The only
courtesy.
involvement you've had in this is delaying it.
I am
That
not-
is the involvement that you have had in this process, and you're doing it again.
Excuse me, Commissioner Morrow. You texted me earlier and asked me about it, and I said, no, I was not, and I wanted to speak with you about it. So allow me the courtesy of having the discussion with you before we make a unilateral decision.
We did not text about this.
You asked me a question and I replied.
Not about this.
Yes, I did. Not about the date, but I did about the,
We can still go into the buildings. I just don't understand why we need to extend the date. What we can do is we can advertise it on city Facebook channels and social media channels. We can advertise it by submitting it into the daily announcements at the high school. We can advertise it by, yes, going into the buildings. But the fact of the matter is we're not going to reach every student by going into the buildings. That's why we need to utilize every single avenue that we can.
I understand that. I would have appreciated the courtesy prior to your doing, that's all I'm asking. I just said I would have appreciated the courtesy.
Well, that's why I'm talking about it right now.
I would have appreciated before this meeting.
Thank you.
I actually think there's merit in engaging staff and maybe generating some enthusiasm within the school.
I don't have a problem with it going live. My concern is that my discussions with the superintendent was that she wanted us to reach out to people, not everybody, because we're not going to reach everybody, but she wanted us to touch base with the people that are involved in it on the school district level, which is the principals, which I've made contact through him, invited him to everything, and they both unfortunately canceled because of what they're doing this last week, which you can probably speak to that. It's like controlled chaos is what I understand from both the principals.
You're asking for what, another 30 days?
Yes, that's all.
Big deal. You know, let's,
Just leave it open.
yeah, what's the difference? Any decision, guidance from the commission?
I think I do, yes.
Yeah, you do. So it was already advertised with a deadline?
No, not yet.
I like the idea of generating some enthusiasm within the halls of education by a personal visit.
That's what I was still planning to do with this time.
Yes.
That I had presented.
That's my plan.
The discussion was that we're probably going to be most effective through social media and, the avenues that we can get into the schools. Like most of our boards and committees, if we don't fill it by the deadline to submit, we're going to continue to accept
Right.
applications.
Right.
But the idea was to set a date to try to at least put some urgency on getting people to apply. Let's see where we're at. And then, at least start to get this moving.
Well, didn't
Because
you?
I'm going to be shocked if we fill it all.
Yeah, didn't you tell me
Even if we
that-
keep it open till
Yeah,
February 28th,
Yeah, didn't you
I
tell me
guess.
that our new communications person is going to start in another
On the
week?
21st.
So that is something that we could ask him to craft, have it run by Commissioner Morrow and myself, and see what we can put together that might be snappy, and obviously you're going to want to make it snappier, to get it out and give it to the schools to have them advertise it.
what we figured was, everything's kind of lost between now and
Yeah.
January
Yeah,
2nd,
we're
roughly,
done.
January 3rd.
Yeah, it is.
But that gives
But-
a solid 4 weeks in January, plus what we can do running up to that, going into the break. And, I know part of my discussion with Commissioner Morrow was, his goal was to have this, 4 months ago. So, we're trying to move this through and get it started, get it up and running. Because like I said, we struggle to fill regular
I understand.
boards and
It's going to
committees.
even be a little more difficult with them. That's why.
Without getting into the middle of a fight, which I'm going to.
There is no fight.
And I can speak for my personal experience at the high school. Middle schools are different, but they're all on a different cycle. But here's what I know. Anything that is going to start new, it's good to start new when you're starting new. So when we come back from the break, that's the time to do it. By the time we get into February, we're thinking about spring break. Everyone's in the middle of chaos. I think, even if it's the end of January, you have, regardless of whether the middle schoolers are, they're coming back from a break. They're going to engage with new groups. At the high school, we're switching trimesters right now and everything. So a lot of teachers having fresh students at the high school. At the middle school, you're still coming back from a break. They have those, what would be 4 weeks? So what was the date that you had, January?
Well, what we figured was January 1st is a Sunday, so I think winter break starts on Tuesday, January 3rd.
Yeah, we come back on the 3rd.
Right, so the 3rd to the 31st is 4 weeks.
And it's open now.
My point is, if it's not done by the end of January at the schools, it ain't getting done. Because that's the time that they're going to do it. In that restart back up. And it's hard to get a hold of anyone at the schools, including teachers, any time of the year, but that's the time to do it. So I don't think it needs to go beyond the 31st.
Well, you would not believe how many times I
Well, that's 2 to 2, so now we got to figure someone else's point of
called
view.
and emailed the people. I actually even went over to the school.
Well, here's my point.
So it I tried. I've been trying.
Staying out of the argument and reaching back to the dawn of time when I was in high school.
The dawn of time.
The dawn of time. There's a lot to be said for generating enthusiasm, and there's a lot to be said for teachers who take a personal interest and encourage students to get involved in things they ordinarily wouldn't, and provide guidance. And words of encouragement like, this would really be good for you. A simple matter like that might get a student involved who otherwise wouldn't. And if we need a little time to do that, what's the difference in leaving the application period open for...
Well, it's going to be open anyway.
Well,
I think we have 2 points of view. It's 2 to 2, so someone else has to make a decision, and we're done.
We're not voting.
Well, we have to get to a decision to move on.
I understand.
So someone else
maybe the
needs
two
to say
architects of this can work it out between them.
Well, I think we can.
All right.
Okay, then let's go to the next thing.
Well, so what, I would like to hear from Commissioner Mitchell.
Knowing high school kids, I was almost at the dawn of time, but just slightly after the dawn of time.
Thank you.
But I do have 2 ex-high school kids who were, anyway. The end of February, if we delayed another 30 days, that's like the end of time for a high school student. There's a little more urgency if we make it January 31st.
Jacob, you're nodding your head that it's the end of time?
There's a little more urgency if we make it January 31st. If you don't get a full slate, you have to extend it. But I'd say make it January 31st.
Okay.
Good to go. So as I was saying in my communications, the Youth Advisory Commission applications, I am excited to report, are open and will close on January 31st.
Commissioner Smith?
I have nothing.
Commissioner O'Donnell?
I think I'm done talking about this.
No, this is on communications. We're not talking about this anymore.
I don't make communications.
Okay. I just have a couple of things. I wanted to report to the commission for your 2 things for your calendars. The interim mayor, commission president of the Westland City Council has given me 2 dates. The formal invitation hasn't come out yet, but I wanted to see whether people were available on either the 9th or the 17th of January, and I would like to know before we leave tonight so I can email him tonight. So right now I have Frank, myself, and Mike, who both days work.
9th and 17th?
Yes.
Either one works.
Either one?
I can do that, either.
Okay. So I'll just tell them and let them pick. So that would be a joint meeting, our last for the year, and then hopefully we can get on a schedule to meet 2 or 3 times next year. A couple of the topics that we wanted to discuss were where we want to go with the tolling, and number 2 was talk about our homeless strategy and find out what the city of West Lynn is doing, because obviously one of the things we need to do is we need to work with partners. For some reason, our community seems to think that Oregon City has the ability to solve this problem all by themselves, and we do not. We cannot do it. I said, jokingly, if we had specific borders or boundaries and we had a gated community, yeah, we could probably deal with it in our boundaries, but it doesn't work like that. So it's something that I know that the commissioners have talked about, but not gone into in depth, and I think are urging them to do that. I think our next conversation has to be with our friends in Lake Oswego, our friends in Milwaukee, and our friends in Gladstone. There's a new sheriff coming into town in Gladstone, and I think we have an opportunity for open communications now as opposed to when we didn't. Also on your calendars, if you would mark that, so the 150th anniversary of the Willamette Falls navigation, locks, and canal is going to happen on the actual real date is the 1st of January, and it was opened in 1872. The Willamette Falls Heritage Foundation, which is involved with the locks, is planning on having a celebration on January 21st, 2023 at the Westland Library at 2 p.m. And I would like to ask for your concurrence to us to support this effort with a donation of $250 for the event. They really want us involved. They're going to have a month-long display of locks images in the main room at the Westland Library. And as you know, we received the allocation through Congressman Schrader to help with the repairs. I think that unfortunately it's probably still not going to be enough money, but at least get us a little ways. I know that our delegation is working on the Corps to add more money to their allocation because they under budgeted. So that is coming up, and I guess I would like some concurrence on whether the $250 is okay to spend to help with this. So I got a thumbs up.
Okay by me.
Okay.
We're talking city money, not personal money?
No, we want the $250. Did you get your checkbook out tonight? Rocky he's going to pay for all of us.
He's going to pass the hat?
Yeah, we're going to pass the hat. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
And you?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's okay, Mr. City Manager?
Yes.
Okay, then last but not least is that many of you know that who were involved, Mike, you were on the periphery of it, but our bridge celebration in October, people are still coming up to me and telling me what a great time they had and how wonderful it was. And so the reason that this item is, Jacob helped write the staff report, the memo about the city seal, is that we had to stamp a whole bunch of stuff with our seal. And I recall that when I started working for the city, and Brocky will know this, Elaine Woolsey was the architect, and if you didn't know Elaine Woolsey, she was a force to be reckoned with and a character in town. So she came up with the seal that we have now, which I will be honest with you, I have always disliked because it is too busy, there's too many things on here, and I can't, we have copies of it, you can't even tell what all these things are. And some of it looks a little cartoonish, if I might add. And Jacob said, by the way, we have the original city seal, and he stamped some things so you can see it. And I said, why aren't we using that? And then when I saw the seal for the city of West Lynn, that theirs is actually a sticker, but they have a press thing. So I wanted to get your concurrence to bring this back, to readopt this as our city seal, as opposed to this. There will be some cost involved because we have to digitize it, but I think it represents more of where we are today as opposed to the, you know, the sort of weird head of Dr. McLaughlin, the Native American woman holding a baby, the boat, the fish, the beaver, the wagons. It's a lot going on here. And I don't know if you've seen the flag, but I personally would not recommend that we fly it because this is more to me in our heritage of kind of what we are, who we are, and that is the Oregon City side. If you're seeing the falls, that is the Oregon City side of the river there. It is not the Westland side. And I know it seems like a sort of a trivial thing, but and I just hope Elaine does not come back and haunt me because I can just hear her talking in my head. Yes.
I don't really want to get in a debate about logo design at 9 o'clock at night.
Well, it's not logo design.
It very much is. Here's my problem with it. I don't think we should ever just jump in one meeting to a decision like that. I'm open to the conversation.
That's why I said bring it back.
I think that the real question I have is if we are going, first question is, do we like this, do we not like this? And whether or not we like it or don't like it doesn't necessarily mean we should change it. But this says a lot more about Oregon City, meaning the current seal, than the other one does. The old one, it's beautiful, but it's also not just as simple as changing, regardless, we have to hire someone to do the digitalization of it and all of that.
Right.
I know there's been numerous people that have talked about the possibility of changing the flag. I think these are all intertwined, so it seems like a bigger can of worms than just changing the seal.
Well, I'm just going to bring it back.
The seal, you showed us I've seen the one of Westland. I don't want our seal to look just like Westland's, and that's what this would do pretty much, because the Westland's is the falls too. I guess what I'm saying is this, I get that. I didn't really want to get into it.
I know.
There's so many things. Yes, I agree this is a busy logo, but it says way more about Oregon City. The wording of Corporation of Oregon City, it sounds like this is a company. It doesn't specify it's City of Oregon City. It doesn't specify the dates. It doesn't specify all the amazing things that this one does. And so I think just saying go with the old one is undermining a process that if we really want a new identity for the seal and the flag, then that should be intertwined. It should go through a process, and would have a new design.
So I asked to bring it back. I'm not asking for us to adopt anything. I said, can we bring it back
I'm
for
open to
further
that.
discussion? So I'm asking, can we bring it back for further discussion?
Well, actually, no. The report basically said we want to go with this one and we want to hire an artist. So no, that was not the report at all, the way I read it. So that's not true.
I'm looking at it right here.
Well, read it.
Anyway, I was having flashbacks looking at
It basically says you want to go back to the old seal. It doesn't say you want to start a process of it.
I would like us to have a further discussion about the seal, period. That's what I'm asking you, regardless of that's what I'm stating on the record.
Subject, discussion, returning to the original seal.
And I'm telling you, my request is, can we bring this back for a further discussion at a later date?
Sure.
Okay, that's all I'm asking.
I'm going to muddy the water.
Please do.
I don't like either one. We have a really nice logo. I'm looking at it on the screen right over there. We have an active arts, you're wearing it on your lapel. We have an active arts commission. I could see us asking them because as Commissioner Smith said, this is part of a branding exercise, and branding is consistency.
Yeah.
We've got that logo all over. Let's add other elements, whether it be date, slogan, the city of,
Seal that fits it.
to turn that logo, make that logo the essential feature of a design.
So let's bring it
But
back.
we do need to bring it back. I just want to throw
That's
that
all I
out there
want.
so that
Yeah.
that can be part of the discussion as well.
Yeah, let's bring it back. So as you recall, West Lynn was incorporated way, way later than we were. so-
Yeah. That's why I want the date on it.
Yeah, all right, so thank you for that. I'd like to just bring it back. I'm not specifying a date and time, we'll figure it out. I'll discuss it with the city manager, and we'll figure out a time to bring it back. So being no further business, thank you, staff, for all of your efforts tonight. Everybody did a fantastic job. Oh, wait, we still have John's thing. Don't we have something to do with the, oh, did we already approve the Revocable permit? Okay, sorry, I pulled that out separately because I was reading it. So we approved that. Okay, so being no further business, we will be adjourning to executive session. Let's take a break until, would you like 9:30 or sooner?